Hi and welcome to Leitrim Daily. My name is Breifne and you're listening to the sports preview show here on the podcast. All eyes will be on avant-garde Pairc Sean McDiarmada on Sunday at 2 p.m. for the throw-in of the National League Round 2 game, the first home game of this year's campaign, where Leitrim face Cork. And Terry Highlands men will be in action after the fine start they had in the campaign last weekend in Derry. Expectations have risen amongst the Leitrim faithful, and it will be interesting to see how they continue that progress into the second round against Cork on Sunday. We'll be talking to Shane Quinn, who was part of that squad who took that point home from Derry on Saturday night, and Aidan Rooney, who was there at the game in his role with Ocean FM as a pundit with them. We'll be talking to both those men later in the programme ahead of the National League encounter. We'll also be taking a quick look back at the GAA results of the week in terms of school sports, where St Nathan's ended Ballinamore's interest in the B Championship on a 2-13 to 2-7 scoreline, while Carrick Community School progressed to the next round of that exact same B Championship on a scoreline of 2-15 to 3-9 over Presentation College. Carrick will continue on into the next round of that tournament. We'll bring you updates on that as that season progresses. There was also more celebrations in Drumshanbo School for their victory. Last week we talked to them about their win in the National Cadet title. This week they have gone one better, and they've won the competition between the North champions and the South champions. So the champions of Northern Ireland versus the champions of Southern Ireland, and they played on Thursday in Dublin in the new national indoor facility in Abbottstown in the National Sports Campus, and they ran out winners on a scoreline of 25-20, 25-27, 25-22. So three tight sets, and we'll be talking to their mentors John King and Shane Hegarty later in the programme. In soccer, it's National League is drawing closer with 14 days to the first games in the Premier Division, another week to the first games in the First Division as they start later in the month. Athlone Town is the venue for Sligo Rovers. They have a friendly tomorrow at 1 p.m, Saturday that is, at 1 p.m. in Athlone Town. So Liam Buckley will get a chance to run the rule over his side after their big win midweek. They had a 5-1 victory against a rather disappointing, it has to be said, a side in Ballina in Fermanagh on Tuesday night. Longford, they are at home to Finn Harps in one of their last pre-season friendly games at 6:30 in Bishopsgate, or City Calling Stadium, or Flanker Park, or whoever's sponsoring them at the moment. It's Bishopsgate, and it is in the Strokestown Road in Longford. So a decent day for any soccer fans. Head for Athlone, have some lunch, back to Longford. You get 2 games in there, and you get to see 4 local sides: Athlone, Sligo, Longford and Finn Harps, local to the northwest at least. So a good day out for any soccer fans. There's also some junior soccer action on Sunday morning, and it's the B Park is where most people's focus will be from a local soccer point of view when Manor Rangers play Cartron. Cartron slipped up last week. They lost top spot in the league. Manor Rangers can go one hand on one side of the cup if they beat Cartron this weekend. With games in hand and Cartron slip up last week, it puts Manor in a brilliant position to make it a 2-horse race effectively. They will need to take all 3 points. We'll be speaking to Thomas McDonald, the manager from Manor Rangers, about their chances of doing exactly that on Sunday morning. It's a big game and a big decision in terms of where the Sligo Superleague Sligo Leitrim Superleague will rest over the summer when the league is on a break. So it'll be interesting to see how Manor get on in that league title chase. 3 big games left: Cartron twice home and away, and a home game against the Kingpins Carberry. So they'll need to win at least 2, if not all 3 of those games to win the league, but very doable. 1 win already against Carberry away a couple of weeks ago has really blown the league wide open. In the Premier Division, which is the second tier of local soccer, Carrick Town host Gertrude Celtic in the Boyle Road Showgrounds at 11 a.m. also on Sunday morning. Both those games kick off at 11 a.m. in the B Park and in Carrick in the Showgrounds. Good to see the teams going well. Carrick Town, of course, beaten last week by a Raf Quattaro inspired Real Tubber, and the irony is Raf will be in that Finn Harp squad that's playing on Saturday night against Longford, so it shows the difference in the standard isn't huge to be going from National League Premier Division side this week, was playing with Real Tubber against Carrick Town last week. Obviously well established in the game, but it shows that you can make those jumps, and the gaps aren't huge. They're a little bit bigger, but they're not massive, and they can really be made in terms of those sports. We also will have a look at the rugby, and there's AIL action this weekend, but not a lot happening on the junior level in the province. Sligo faced a long trip to Stradbrook to play Blackrock College. Now it's the third time in 12 months that have played these sides after last year's playoff and earlier in the league this year. Blackrock have won both the previous games by scoring in the last minute to take the lead, and Sligo, who performed best in both of those games, will be looking for a revenge this time round, and hoping it's a case of third time lucky that they can get the same start and hold on to those leads. So they play at 2:30 kickoff in Stradbrook in Dublin, in Monkstown, on Saturday afternoon. So the very best luck to Sligo Rugby in that. As I said, neither of the other senior teams in the region in action. No games for Sligo in the junior ranks or for Carrick and Shannon in the junior ranks. But one game of note is the under-17 boys side from Carrick and Shannon Rugby Club. They make the trip to Cork for Division 2 League semi-final. So a big day out for those lads, and hopefully they can do the business. They finished, I think, third in the group stage, and they play second away, which is Cork. And that happens this weekend. The very, very best of luck. Now, let's get into the nuts and bolts of the weekend sporting action, and I suppose we'll start with the NFL second round game against Cork on Sunday afternoon in Carrick and Shannon. And I spoke to Shane Quinn about the game last week and his hopes and the aspirations of the entire squad going into the game with Cork. But first, let's have a chat with one of the people who's been there, done that in the Leitrim jersey over the years. He was in Celtic Park last week as a pundit with Ocean FM, and Aidan Rooney joins me now to talk about what he sees as the potential for this Leitrim side. Now, of course, Leitrim taking on Cork in Avant-Garde Pairc Sean McDiarmada this Sunday. And one of the people I had the pleasure to have a conversation with at the game in Derry on Saturday night, Aidan Rooney, now pundit obviously for Ocean FM. Aidan, welcome to the show.
Hello, Breifne. How are you?
I'm great. And yourself?
I'm great. Looking forward to another busy weekend.
Well, after last weekend, because we did have a conversation ahead of the game where we didn't really fancy our chances of coming away with a point. We were both pleasantly surprised, though.
We were. I think everybody in the ground was pleasantly surprised. I think, even the greatest optimist going down to Celtic Park last Sunday, wouldn't have anticipated what happened in the game. The fact that Leitrim left Celtic Park with a point, disappointed with a point, after playing the majority of the best football of the day, is a very, very good place to be in going into next Sunday. I suppose the reality, Leitrim were always going to look at this division and saying, can we stay in it? And after last Sunday's performance, without getting carried away, the team showed a level of maturity, the level of performance, particularly, in the lead up to the game, preparation, from the outside didn't look great, but obviously Terry had the work done. Before Christmas and whatever else, and the performance was excellent. Now I suppose it's about repeating, but we would have been going to the first two games anticipating probably no points and looking for performances to get us into a fighting weight for the next games. But the reality now is that Cork are coming to Carrick on Sunday, where it hasn't been a very happy hunting ground for them before. In the 90s. Leitrim competed very well with Cork, over the years. But like Sunday's game now comes into focus for Leitrim people, thinking, hold on a second, maybe we can get something out of this game. A
couple of things, Aidan, on that, and I suppose really, is it a case of keeping the camp happy? Because obviously we don't have the option of bringing in more players. Who we have is in the squad, more or less, with maybe one or two exceptions. But who we have is there already. We have to work with what we've got, given the population of the county. So the fact that Terry let a glut of them go away on a social event during the FBD League, does that keep morale in the camp happy? The lads come back and say, well, Terry looked after us for that thing in our personal lives. Now let's go and give back to the team.
That must be the way it happened, Breifne. You know what I mean? We had conversations on this, I suppose, in private circles through before the game, as to what would have happened I know there's quite a substantial number of guys away on that trip, and that's fine. But what would have happened if there was one or two guys away on that trip? How would Terry have dealt with that situation? Would he have dealt a little bit more harshly with it? Like, we don't know, but the outcome has been excellent. The outcome has been a performance, beyond what the expectation was. It was very it replicated what we did last year early on in the season, in the Mayo game and the FBD, and then into the league games and the Wexford game. So they replicated last season, in a higher division, which is a great testament to where we're at. Like, we know from the performances last year that we sustained the performance right through the league, and you're only hoping that Rory Gallagher set up with a very defensive setup last weekend. Leitrim exploited it. Leitrim owned the ball for the first 15 minutes. Got their foothold in the game. Whether Cork will play differently next Sunday, I'd imagine they probably will. But the reality was that Derry gave Leitrim an opportunity, and Leitrim took it. Like, Rory's style of play is quite defensive and attack on the break, and we counted in the first half, in the first 15 minutes, Derry had 14 men, in their own half of the field defending Leitrim, who owned the ball. And as a result, Leitrim got the confidence from it. They built a performance level that was good enough to, we all thought at the game we should have won it. You know what I mean? Leitrim's performance certainly merited the point they got, if not the second point. But, from that point of view, Breifne, like, we're in a very good position now. We have a great start made, and like I've seen the last number of years, with Sligo here, like, staying in Division 3, 5-6 points is your target. That point in Derry could be invaluable come to the end of the league.
People had been grouping, I suppose anecdotally, they've been grouping Cork and Derry together as games that we didn't expect to really take anything out of. Does the point in Derry last week now mean that Cork is a target? We could get another point or maybe even two from this game on Sunday?
Well, looking at the Offaly performance last weekend against Cork, Offaly were in the game for a long, long time. Cork eventually pulled away at the end of the match. But the reality, now is for Leitrim, with Cork coming to Carrick and Shannon, Cork are going to have to travel well. They're going to have to come in a very positive frame of mind. And I know they have heavyweights in Ronan McCarthy and Cian O'Neill, with the team, and experienced guys looking after the team. But the reality is they have to come to Cork or come to Carrick and Shannon and get a performance next Sunday for themselves now. So they're on the back of a win at home. That's great for them. We were on the road and got our point against a team who were going to take points off everyone in the group. So Cork now, the pressure's on Cork, obviously. We're going to Carrick and Shannon next Sunday, and anything out of the game would be huge for us. Look, and you wouldn't write the lads off at this stage. And, like, to be fair, we're missing some key players. We're missing forwards. They're obviously Ryan O'Rourke is injured. Evan Sweeney's not featuring at the moment. So we're missing lads up front who played all through last season. With great effect for us. So it's very, very positive from a Leitrim point of view now that we have players to come back into a group that's already performing well.
Has the results so far changed your perspective on where we're going to sit in the league table at the end of the season?
No. The Division 3 is a dogfight. And I think about Division 3, I think Martin alluded to it last year in the commentary. Division 4 can be a horrible division if you don't win your first couple of games, because it becomes kind of, it's a dead rubber. Your league is over, and as a result, your season's probably, coming to an end early because, momentum drops. But Division 3 is a different kettle of fish. Like, it'll go down to the last game, for all intents and purposes. And, the way the league has started now would lead you to believe it's going to be very, very tight. The teams that lost last week, I see Longford are afraid of Offaly now, and all of a sudden there's going to be a kickback from teams. The reality is, there's very little in the teams. Obviously, if Leitrim have performed to the level we saw last week, it brings up, what we would have perceived to be the lowest common denominator or one of the lower ones up to a level where, hold on a second now, these guys can compete up here and are good enough to compete. And that's what Leitrim showed last week. They had players who really stepped up all over the field, and, we have a forward line now that has a potency about it. And that's a good starting place for any team.
Now, you yourself would have played at Division 2 back in the day with Leitrim. Is this squad capable of maybe developing into a Division 2 side? Maybe not for next season, but for a couple of years down the line, or is Division 3 where we should be?
Look, at the moment, Division 4 was where we should have been last year, and we were. But the work Terry has done, and the motivational skills he possesses, and the team level of fitness, and everything looks right at the moment. We always talk about forwards winning games, and that's not coming from from a forward speaking. That's a reality. And when you have the players in the forward division who have the capabilities of doing the damage Leitrim did last week, like 114 was a huge score. We only had 2 wides in the game, which kind of, I suppose, leads us to believe that we took every opportunity that came our way. I think we have forwards now of the calibre coming in. Gary Rooney was fantastic. Keith Byrne was fantastic. Shane Moran was fantastic. The half forward line worked tirelessly doing its job. We now have a very potent forward line, and you add in, as the guys I mentioned earlier, back into that mix, and we do have options up there, and even the players we have lost since last year. Like we saw with a small county, a small pick, but all of a sudden we're talking about, we've lost some key players to the group, and we're still able to compete at this level. So it kind of belies all the perceived norms that we don't have the players. I think we might have the players.
The neck on the block for Sunday. What do you think the outcome's going to be for Leitrim?
Look, the way it started, we had all talked about, I suppose, loose tongue talk about, Leitrim, maybe getting a heavy enough, tanking last Sunday. What it showed was it's going to be very tight. Obviously there were some beatings of 7 or 8 points in the league in some games. Like Cork are coming under pressure. The start is obviously huge on Sunday, but I wouldn't write off anything on Sunday at this stage. The weather, I think it's going to be midland over the weekend. It'll be damp enough. It's going to be a game where fitness and stuff. And Leitrim showed last year, a huge level of fitness and commitment to the cause. And there was no time in the games last year when we thought, this team's going to run out of legs, because it didn't. And we thought in the Mayo game in the FBD, Leitrim had a, decent first half. We thought, oh no, the second half we're going to struggle here now. We're not going to be able to keep this up against the Division 1 team, and we did, comfortably. So, this team is punching. It's punching probably a little bit above its weight, but like we're now trying to decide, what its weight actually is. So, talking about the game on Sunday, at this stage, you'd be very disappointed if Leitrim weren't going to be very, very close to Cork. Leitrim are holding all the aces and all the pressures on Cork. They're the elite squad, they're the elite team, they're expected to get promotion out of the division, a bit like last Sunday. But the reality for Leitrim now is that if we get a performance on Sunday in front of our home partisan support, like Cork obviously won't travel in numbers to this game, I wouldn't imagine. So you're going to have a heavy weighted home support. And now we're buzzing again like we were last season, leaving Croke Park. Leitrim are buzzing. We're looking for a huge performance again, and now people are coming with anticipation to Carrick and Shannon against Cork, which might seem crazy, but that's where we were in our better days numbers of years ago. So now all of a sudden we're getting back to that level again. So I predict, Breifne, under the circumstances and the performance last week, we have to look at getting something out of this game now. And we talked about a performance beforehand, but now maybe a performance and a result is possible for us. And sure, if that was the case, then you're looking up the table, at the top end of the table for the rest of the season, which would be a brilliant position to be in.
Well, listen, Aidan, on that, I'm going to leave you, and thank you very much for your analysis of what promises to be a potentially exciting weekend for Leitrim football. Thanks very much, Aidan.
Thanks, Breifne.
Now, there's an old Irish saying, "Tus might latna hibra," and last Saturday evening was exactly that for Leitrim, when a good start was half the battle. Shane Quinn, who was one of the 15 Warriors took to the field in Celtic Park last Saturday evening, it joins me now. Shane, welcome back to the programme.
Cheers, having me with me.
It must be a good time to be in the Leitrim camp with the result last weekend, really setting up what has the potential to be a decent season looking forward.
It is, yeah. It's a great place to be, but we were kind of disappointed that we only came away with a draw last week. We went there with full intention to win, and we controlled the game for large parts of the game. It was only our own mistakes that kind of cost us that point. So we were disappointed that we only have 1 point on the board instead of 2. But the confidence that we're taking from it is massive. Like, we've really rolled in together since that Roscommon game, and training has gone up something serious. So it's a great place to be. It's a great environment to be in now at the minute.
Yeah, but that didn't all happen in the space of 2 weeks. Let's be honest about it. This has been a team in progress since Terry took the job over a year ago now.
Yeah, that's it. Even before that, good to this team was there in New York. Like, I think that New York game was a big kind of help to development. A lot of the young players, like the age profile then was massive. Like, he was very young, and having the experience from that game, and then the experience then that Terry brought in last year, and has continued this year. He's brought Kevin Downs in with him this year too, and he's kind of brought us on to another level again in training.
What's happening inside the camp privately that we've been missing? Because all the pundits were saying Leitrim were going to take a hiding last week, and it never looked like happening. From about 3 minutes into the game, Leitrim were in charge.
Yeah, that's it. There's no massive secret in the camp. Whatever, within the dressing room, we all knew that we were capable of producing that, and producing a lot better. We still made a lot of mistakes there, and so there's still lots of things to improve on. But we knew in the camp from 1 to 30 and manage the team that we gave ourselves that we knew ourselves that we were capable of producing what we produced. There's no mad secret about it. There's nothing really massive that's going on. It's just the self-belief that Terry and the backroom team has instilled in us since last year, and even the beginning of this year. It's gone up another level.
Of course, this weekend Cork are in your sights. What's the mood like going into that game on Sunday?
Everyone's kind of excited to bring Cork to Carrick, and we're not taking our eye off it. They're serious opposition, but at the end of the day, we're in Division 3 too, so are they. So we've nothing to fear going into them. It's a massive challenge, but that's the challenge that we want. We want to be playing these teams and having these challenges to progress.
It's a bit surreal to have a kind of an expectation level going into these games where we can compete, when maybe 7 days ago we didn't have that. What's it like being in a squad when the expectation levels change so quickly ahead of games and between games?
Yeah, well, the levels that change kind of doesn't really affect us too much, because we expect every time we go out that we're going to perform, we believe that we're able to compete with these lads. So it's really kind of the outside that's changed, but nothing inside it has changed, and that's the way we keep it. The way we keep going, nothing's changed for us. It's just kind of the supporters that might have just to change.
How has the training, the mood been in training this week?
Yeah, and ever since the Roscommon game, the Tuesday night, we had a few words when we were all back together, and ever since then, the mood in the camp has been it's been electric. Everyone's kind of bouncing off each other, and everything is there's serious intensity, and there's a serious buzz around the place. And it's just important to keep that going, because success breeds success, and it's everything is looking good, everything's fine and dandy. It's important to keep that going for the rest of the campaign.
Terry has talked about how he likes to build his teams on a good defensive, a good solid defense, and a nice counter-attacking play. You're a big part of that in terms of breaking forward. Anything that we might not expect that you can tell us about for Sunday's game?
No, not really. We're set up with our game plan. So we're able to vary with lots of ways. We have the boys up there. We're able to mix and match defense and attack. We've serious attacking threats, and from all angles. We don't just play the one way. We have a number of different ways to hurt teams. We're strong in lots of places that teams wouldn't really think, and it's just about utilising what we really have and driving on.
Well, listen, Shane, I'm sure there'll be a great crowd in Avantcard Pairc Sean McDiarmada on Sunday afternoon cheering on the green and gold, and the very best luck to you. Thanks for taking my call.
Cheers, Referee. Thanks very much.
Now, it was only last week that we first debuted volleyball on the show, but we're back again because there's been another result this week that we really want to talk about. I'm joined by Shane Hegarty and John King of Drumshanbo Vocational School. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks very much, Breifne.
Now, it's been...
Thanks, Breifne.
No problem, John. It's been a busy week because after winning the National Championships last week, which we covered on the show, you've gone on to play the Northern Ireland champions in the kind of the Champions playoff, and you've won that. You're now champions of the whole island. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, Breifne. Yeah, it was kind of a bit of a surprise, I suppose. My wife would have gone in as underdogs really for this, so it was a nice bonus to end the top of the year off with the cherry.
Now, you say underdogs, but in so doing, you've actually become the joint record holders of this title with 4 wins. That's a huge achievement for any county, never mind one from such a small rural part of the country.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose it speaks to volumes to the kind of the work that's been done down through the years here in Drumshanbo. From the man beside me, John King, it's kind of a symbol of how hard the work has gone in throughout the generations, and thankfully it seems to be passing on. So we'll keep adding to it, hopefully.
Let's talk about the game yesterday. A tight 3-setter. All teams in the hunt until the death in all 3 sets. Talk to us about how the game developed.
Oh yeah, it was extremely tight, Breifne, to be honest with you. I'd be lying if I said it couldn't have gone either way, really. Like, we were just came out on top in the end. At one stage we were quite a few points down when we clawed back, and yeah, like, either team really could have won it. We kind of started well, I suppose. We did the first set 25-20, but within that, even the lead kind of changed hands a couple of times, and we kind of pulled away towards the end. Second set, we were clear 5 points at one stage, then we went down 5 points, then we came back again, and we were beaten eventually 25-27. So going into the third set, it was all about keeping the lads kind of focused and keeping their heads up, which they did, thankfully, and we kind of eventually clawed our way to a 25-22 victory. It was very much kind of tooth and nail there at one stage, but
Campbell led most of the way through the set, yeah.
And Campbell led most of the way for most of it.
Pretty nerve-wracking. It must have been tough to watch.
Oh, very much so. I've lost about a stone and sweat on the sideline. I'm still recovering.
In terms of the performers, you might talk, because I know we spoke to a few of the lads on the team last week, but who were the better players on the day?
Well, I suppose it's a cliche to say, but kind of every player really did play their part, even a few of the subs that came on.
We used our subs much more.
Yeah, our subs played a far bigger part yesterday than last week now, and we badly needed them. We had kind of spiked winners from the likes of Radek Oberon, Ronan Moore, Owen Gucky and Conor Flood and Carl Winters off the bench. We had Danny McQueen setting for one set, and then we tried to mix it up. We did it with Eric Oberon setting for another set, and both played a key part. Kieran McMorrow was all over the back line and setting at the front as well. And Sean Moran got some great ball digging on the back line as well. So it'd be fair to say that absolutely everyone played their part. Like, I think if one lad had been injured, it would cost us. It was that tight.
And in terms of volleyball, obviously we spoke last week about how it's not really outside of the school environment in the county. Is there any chance that that club could develop out of this and actually push it on? Because if we've athletes of this calibre in the county, or are other sports too big of a draw to really make it a regular thing in a club environment as opposed to the school?
I don't think so, no. I think it's more that I suppose it's just someone has kind of put it together, really. It's just a case that it's been kind of, I suppose, restricted to school terms. It just suited with the weather and that. It's very much an indoor sport here in Ireland, so it suits to be played over the winter. But there's definitely the talent here in the town to set up a club if someone wanted to take that bat and run with it. I could see it being very successful.
Let's hear from John for a second, just because I know you're on the shared phone line there. John, from a
just slightly correct the story that it's only Drumshanbo. Manor Hamilton won more All-Irelands in the late 2010s than we did. They were in 4 finals and won 2. And back in the 80s, the 2 schools in Carrick, the vocational school and Marymount, were very competitive and reached finals in the Northwest. There was a tournament that had all Sligo and Leitrim in the Northwest. So it was wider in schools in the area, going back in time, and then, as I say, Manor Hamilton had a very good run in the late 2010s.
In terms of the actual history of the sport in the school, obviously it's long established, as you've just pointed out. It must be nice, John, for yourself as a retired member of staff to see that this tradition continues.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge surprise. First of all, that it was taken up. I think Marty Fallon just put it out there, and Aidan Shannon and Sean Scollin initially said that they would take it up, and that was one thing. But then, in my last 10 years, we did not win one All-Ireland. So, I mean, it got the enthusiasm youth into it, and then Shane came along as well. So, nothing like a youthful exuberance leading the path.
Well, listen, gentlemen, on that note, I'm going to leave you. You've obviously been nominated for our monthly sports award, which goes out in a vote next week. So congratulations on that as well. I know it won't figure quite as high as the national titles will in the last 2 weeks, but it's an exciting time for the sport in the school and in the surrounding areas as well. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks very much, Breifne, and thanks on behalf of all the school as well for the kind of bringing attention to it as well. We're very thankful for that.
No problem, my pleasure.
Thanks, Breifne.
Now Manor Rangers are still flying towards the top of the Sligo and Leitrim District Superleague Championship race, and I'm joined by their manager Thomas McDonald to discuss their next fixture, which is against Cartron, who are also at the top end of the table. Thomas, welcome back to the programme.
Hello, Breifne. How are you?
I'm great. And yourself?
I'm good now. All's good.
It's been a good couple of weeks for Manor Rangers, and you now face a big game this weekend. Another title challenger in the shape of Cartron. They slipped up last week, but they won't be an easy pushover at all this week. How are you hoping the game goes?
Yeah, these last few weeks have been still going strong. I think last time I talked to you was after the Renmore match, and since then last week we played Glenview and we got over that match, and now we have Cartron, as you mentioned, and it is a big game. It's a huge game. They're still top of the table. As you said there, they did have a bit of a slip up. They drew last weekend, so they dropped 2 points. So we've stepped up on them another wee bit, and now this is I suppose our opportunity to try and take more points of them and maybe take them off the top. But they'll be seeing this as a huge game for their season as well. They'll need to beat us, and as I said, we need to get a result of them or beat them. It's
been some return for Cartron to the league, because they obviously came up from the Premier Division last year. Does that show how big the gulf really isn't that big between, say, the First Division or the Premier Division and the Super League, if Cartron were in that second tier last season?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm not exactly sure where Cartron were before last season. I could be wrong in saying I'm not sure. They have been a team there for years. I don't know, were they about for a few seasons and then they regrouped last year. But whatever way they did it, they had a very strong season. I think they cruised through the Division 1, and again, since they've came up, they've been going fierce well in the Super League too, which could, as you said, it could show that there's not that big of a gulf. But I don't think all the teams in Division 1 will come up and have the success they're having. Maybe the top 2 or 3 teams might be able to compete as well as they're doing.
In terms of the title challenge, and I know you don't like talking about the overall picture, you prefer to focus game on game, but in terms of the title challenge, you've beaten Carberry once this year, Cartron the other challengers for the title. A win on Sunday really sets out a message that Manor Rangers are in this.
Yeah, it's a game again that we have to send out a message. We have to win the game, really. If we lose the game, Cartron will jump from 34 points to 37, and we'll remain on 31 points, so there'll be 6 points between us. I know we do have 2 games in hand, but the thing is, Cartron already have the points on the board, so we need to take the 3 points and then try and go joint top or second, but just we have to get a result, definitely.
In terms of the team facing into the game, any injury worries, anyone unavailable?
No, I think I have everybody available now. There is a few minor knocks and niggles. It's just every game is so important now that the games are coming hot and heavy between league action, Connacht Cup action, and there during the week the fixtures came out for the Glasshouse Cup, which will be near the end of February. So there's no rest, so you do pick up a few niggles, and that's why we try to do a bit of squad rotation, and some weeks give lads a rest and give other boys opportunities.
You gave a few a rest in the last round of the Connacht Cup, still came through, albeit with the help of a late goal and a penalty shootout. In terms of going forward, you've drawn Athenry in the next level of that, more Galway opposition. This time they have to again travel to the B Park. Are you confident of maybe taking a scalp from another Galway side in that competition?
Yeah, look, it's great that we have Athenry's first team, or Athenry A. They have 2 teams, or I don't know if they have more, but they have 2 teams anyway, A and B. It's a big game, and I've been kind of, once you see who you get drawn against, you kind of start monitoring them a bit more. And I know, as well as Athenry being in the last 32 against us, they're also in the last 16 teams in the country in the FAI, so they're having a magnificent season. I think they're up near the top of the Premier Division in Galway as well. So look, I know what's coming here. this is going to be a huge challenge. It is massive that we've got them at home and they have to travel to the B Park. Hopefully that might unsettle them a little bit. And depending how they get on this weekend in the last 16 of the FAI, see what form they're in next week. But it is a massive challenge.
Do you get a chance to maybe have a look at them play before that game, or do you have the resources at this level to do that, to travel to see them play in one of their games?
They are at home this weekend in the FAI. They got a nice draw at home, so I think it's Crumlin United from Dublin are coming down to them. But I would love to go up to see them, but again, I suppose I don't know what it is, 2.5 hours away, and I'll be concentrating on our own game for Sunday morning, so I won't get up to see them. But I'll be monitoring it on Facebook or something, and I know they're going to be a quality side anyway.
In terms of players going forward, obviously you've had some of the young lads coming in, some of them involved with the school side as well that your brother Anthony looks after. In terms of the whole feeling around Manor Hamilton over the last few months and even the last 12 months, with the footballers winning the national or the county title, the schools winning a provincial title, and now Manor Rangers kind of really coming into it as well, it must be a really good feel-good factor around sport in general in the town.
Yeah, it's great. I remember back when we were in the GAA, when we were in the county final. I remember that day we had a soccer match against Ahana, and I was there for the first half managing, and then I'd head back to Manor to meet up with the team to head to Carrick for the final. And on the way back, second half, I was getting the reports from our game, and Robbie, as we've been chatting about, scored 2 goals that day, and we got the win in Ahana, which is always a tough place to go to. We won 2-1, and then we went on to Carrick and we won the championship final, and then boys came back into the soccer, and there was a good buzz or a good feeling about the place, and our team has gone from strength to strength and are continuing to do so, and hopefully we will bring that again into this weekend.
Okay, well listen, in your hunt for the first ever Super League title to come to Manor Hamilton, it will be great to see you progress one stage further, closer to that title with a victory on Sunday morning. But the very best of luck in your encounter with Cartron at 11 a.m. in the B Park in Manor Hamilton, and I'm sure all support will be gratefully appreciated by the lads and yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Breifne. It would be great to see as many people out as possible and push the lads on. So hopefully they'll turn up in this big game on Sunday.
Excellent. Well, listen, well done and best of luck on Sunday.
Thank you, Breifne. Bye-bye.
All month we have been talking about the Leitrim Daily Sports Person of the Month Award. There are 3 categories and we have the final week's nominations to announce on today's show. We'll also go through the full list of everybody who will be on the public vote, which starts on our website on Monday. Now, in terms of the extra names in the hat for this week, we had one more candidate, should we say, in the international category, and that is Drumshanbo Boys Volleyball Cadet side. They were, of course, nominated after winning the national title 10 days ago, but now they find themselves in the international category as well because of a fabulous victory during the week against the Northern Ireland champions, Campbell College, and they are also in that category. They'll be up against Dean Clancy, the international boxer who made his Irish debut at the Strandja tournament in Sofia, Bulgaria, during the month. That's the international category done and dusted. There's a glut of additions in the national category this week. I suppose that's down to the return of the national leagues. We're looking at 5 different names on the list this week from 4 different sports. 2 of the 15 who took to the field against Derry last weekend take a nomination. They are Shane Quinn and Keith Byrne, while Dara Mitchell of North Leitrim Athletics Club also receives a nomination. Martin Feeney of Leitrim Hurlers gets nominated despite their defeat to Enniskillen. Martin Feeney of Leitrim Hurlers gets nominated despite their defeat to Fermanagh in Enniskillen last week. He played fabulously at wing back, while Carla Le Guin represents the ladies. She had a fabulous victory in a rather facile win over Derry, but player of the game on the day in question. In the local category, we have 3 nominations, and 2 of them are under the age of 10. Scott Williams and Sarah Mulvaney Kelly with outstanding times in the streets of Ballyshannon, 5k and 10k over the weekend last week. Congratulations to both Sarah and Scott for their fantastic achievements. They join Conor Flood, a member of the Carrick and Shannon Rugby Club under 17 side, who reached the Connacht League semi-final with a fabulous victory last weekend. He's also a member of that Drumshanbo Vocational Schools volleyball team, so he actually finds himself nominated, himself and his teammates, in no fewer than all of the categories. Not a bad month by Conor standards. And did I mention he's also in the Leitrim under 17 squad as well? Bit of a multi-talented star for the future there in Drumshanbo. That brings us to 25 total nominations across all of the categories. As we mentioned, just the 2 in the international section this week, or this month, Dean Clancy in boxing and the boys team from Drumshanbo after their international cadet victory during the week. In national, we have a load of names, so let's go through them quickly. Keith Byrne of Gaelic football, Breach Connolly for athletics, Colin Crossan for pool, the Drumshanbo Vocational School Boys Cadets Volleyball side for their national title victory 10 days ago. Matthew Early for his Connacht Senior Cup victory with Sligo Rugby just before the end of last year. Martin Feeney for his hurling performance with Leitrim against Fermanagh last weekend. Killian Gaffey for his outstanding performance for the under-20s Gaelic football side. Jack Kelly and Peter Moran, both individually nominated there for their part in the under-13 Sligo Leitrim Ulster Championship victory for the soccer, while Conor Langan and Carla Le Guin, as we mentioned already, in the hat for this month's competition. Alana McGuinness with fine indoor performances in athletics, and Dara Mitchell, another fine under 20 national title, a medal for him in the 3k walk last weekend. Shane Quinn, as we mentioned, rounding off the list. We do, of course, have a local category as well. And as we mentioned, Scott Williams, Conor Flood and Sarah Mulvaney Kelly, they're all added to the list this week to give us a total of 9 people in this category. Shane Byrne of Carricktown, Keith Crossan, Carrick and Shannon Rugby Club, Robbie Cunningham of Manor Rangers, Conor Flood, as we mentioned, of Carrick Rugby, which is what he got the nomination for, but also a member of that Drumshanbo volleyball team. Sean Hayden of Carricktown, Brian McDonald, Manor Rangers, Sarah Mulvaney Kelly of North Leitrim Athletic Club, St Clair's Comprehensive Boys Junior Soccer Team, who won a provincial title at junior B level in soccer in Athlone Town just under 2 weeks ago, while Scott Williams rounds out the list from North Leitrim Athletic Club. So much talent and so many fantastic achievements. It's going to be absolute nightmare to pick a winner from that, but we'll be hoping that you'll help us do that. We'll be talking about this competition and who's won it on next week's show, but in the meantime, we're going to be asking you on Monday to help us pick who that will be. The vote will be open for 48 hours, and that's a tough category to pick. So many fantastic names and so many fantastic performances. The public vote is just a guide for us so we can see what's happening. There will be a panel next week on the show who will go through each candidate and pick a winner with help and advice from yourselves. Now, to try and keep it as simple as possible, it's 1 vote per person. You must register with an email address to get on the vote. So there won't be any gerrymandering of the votes. I know it's vote season. No little tricks or anything like that. We're going to have 1 vote, 1 person. We will be keeping an eye on it. So the very best of luck to all of our candidates. You all deserve to win this award, and fantastic performances for the month. And it's just January. We've got national titles, international titles, provincial titles to beat the band through the county, and there's much more to come as the year progresses. Anyway, if you want to be involved and to vote for that, don't forget, get on our email list and get that email when it comes out on Monday with all the details. You can find more information on each of the candidates on our website by clicking on the awards section of the website, leitrimdaily.com/awards, and you'll find all the information about each of the candidates. The very best of luck to you all. And that, folks, is all we have time for this week. Thank you very much to all my guests for bringing us up to date with everything that went on in their neck of the woods over the last 7 days, and looking forward to the next 7 as well. I'll be in Carrick and Shannon on Sunday afternoon. I'm really looking forward to that game. I'll also be at the soccer games on Saturday, but it's a big action-packed sporting weekend ahead in the region. Thank you very much to everyone for listening. I will be back tomorrow with a really important show, and it's a look at the general election, which happens in 1 week's time. And on the 8th of February, we will decide who will lead our country for the next 5 years. The show tomorrow will feature a short interview, about 10 minutes, with each of the candidates in the region who wanted to have a chat with us and let us bring to you, the listeners, who is running and what they stand for. So we'll have a short 10-minute conversation with each candidate in the election that you have an option to vote for, and we will be talking to them about who they are, why they're in politics, what they're hoping to achieve, and it'll give you really good insight into who these people are and why you should vote for one of them next Saturday on the 8th of February when you're asked for your input into who you think should lead the next government. I'll be back tomorrow with that show. It's very exciting. We've put a lot of work into it here in the channel, and we're really proud of giving that platform to the smaller candidates, but also to the larger candidates, to talk about themselves and really explain why they're involved and what their motivations are. And hopefully you can help make your own mind up about who you would want to represent you and who will get your vote on February the 8th. I'll be back then. Talk to you tomorrow.